Listen closely. Do you hear that? No? Good. Because after these 3 stories, you will.
Sorry for the length of this, but it was spooky enough of an experience for me to write it. While I was deployed in Kosovo, my team did a lot of night missions that required us to cover a great deal of ground in a short period of time in order to make our extractions, all of it while remaining undetected by anyone in the areas that we would pass through. We would always seem to see odd things during the night, but nothing like this. During one of our recon missions, we had started by getting dropped off in a remote location to identify whether shipments of mortar rounds and mines were being moved through the area. Our extract was going to be before daybreak, and we needed to make it just over 17 kilometers. The terrain wasn't too overgrown, and we had good intel over the area, and it was either a full moon or close to it. Of course, it would be for this story. So unless we encountered somebody, this was going to be an easy night. Our team was normally only 4 men, but we had the opportunity to make this a good training run for some of the new guys, and we took on an extra 3. We still wanted to make sure we played it safe though, so I took rear security, and we'll call him L, took the position just in front of me. We both worked great together and could easily manage to cover our team if needed. We moved about 10K through our mission area without finding anything and had made good time doing it. At this point, we needed to start heading for our extraction point, which was located over a good-sized hill and then through an area that was near a village, but not too close. We regrouped, did a count of people, ammo, and supplies, and moved out. Being rear security, I was the last to move, and just as I was about to take off, I heard a noise in the trees, maybe 50 meters off. I turned and saw L looking at the direction as well. He had heard it too. Everyone else was still moving, since the new guys were in the middle and were not used to looking back every 20 meters to spot your security. We were getting left. Chances were that the noise was nothing more than a deer, but L and I started moving out, using a 2-man bounding technique. We kept hearing a noise, so I told L to reach the team while I remained in place after our next bound. I found a place with cover, and he bolted after the team. I heard the noise again, and then saw trees move about 15 meters in front of me. Everything stopped. 2 minutes went by, with me being very quiet, controlling my breathing and watching my front and sides. L and my team were slowly making their way to engage whatever had been following us. They came up on the sides and surrounded the area I signaled to. Once in position, I moved up. Nothing. Not footprints, tracks, or any sign that something had been there. Cue the guys giving L and I a hard time for getting left alone and scared. Good-hearted fun, of course.
We move out again. Again, I am the last to move, with L between myself and the next man to the front. This time, no noises when I step away. After about 2K, we come up to an orchard that we need to move through. The light from the moon was really bright, and the trees were spaced, so we used them for cover as we stayed near the middle of the orchard. Just before I enter, I hear the noise again. This time, I thought I heard a little girl giggling, not something that my imagination would make up on its own. I was expecting wildlife, if anything. This time, Elle had taken off an additional 20 meters and turned to wait for me. I moved to my location and he moved out again. I was crouched next to a tree, watching for anything. All of a sudden, the tree I was next to caught my attention. In the knots on the tree, I could see a face that looked like a person. As I squinted and looked more closely, a little girl's face appears, and she turns at me, smiling, waving a little hand, and giggles, not maliciously, then disappears back into the tree. I am in absolute shock at this point, and there is not a chance in hell that I am going back to my team to report what I just saw. So instead, I bolt and catch up to Elle and keep my mouth shut. Recognizing that I likely have lost my mind, I am not going to talk about anything. We hit our extract and leave. 2 weeks go by, and I am told that I am needed to provide security for a team of combat engineers who are going through an area I am familiar with. In the meantime, my team was going to be going through the area we were in 2 weeks ago, where Elle and I got scared, everyone laughing. Again, I never said a word to anyone about what I saw. In my mind, I am quite happy about not going back there. So I go out with the engineers and help them find a minefield that had been recently laid in an area that kids walk through every day. And they take care of informing the village nearby while starting to blow the mines in place. I really appreciate the engineers and the work they did out there. I get back and am taken to see my commander and told thanks for the work. Feeling great, I head back to my barracks room, a place I rarely get to visit, and see that none of the guys are back yet. No sooner than taking my boots off, the door opens, and I hear everyone laughing as they enter. Elle is not laughing and telling everyone to screw themselves. One of the other guys sees me and blurts out, "Hey man, Elle says he isn't going on patrol with us anymore in your favorite spot." I just grimace and wait for stuff to calm down. A couple of days later, Elle and I are out playing babysitter to some scouts. He says, "What did you see that night?" I shrug and say, "I don't know, just my imagination getting the better of me." Then he says something that sends chills up my spine. "I know you saw her. I saw her too. Tell me I am not crazy." I felt numb and just said, "You're not crazy. Where did you see her?" He said, "Inside a tree." I had never given any information to Elle about what I saw or details that could have led him to come to the same conclusion. When I saw the girl in the tree, Elle was 40 meters away from my location and could not have even seen me looking at the tree.
There are some wonderful things about being young, poor, and in love. Sadly, this is about none of those things. When I was 22, I decided to move in with my equally poor boyfriend. Unfortunately, poor plus poor still equals mostly poor, but not so destitute that we couldn't afford an apartment in a college town. we happily moved into our little one-bedroom, first-floor apartment. Sure, it had problems. The lead-based paint was so thick we were sure we could survive a nuclear attack. The bathroom didn't have a vent. Instead, it had a window in the shower. The appliances were from the time of my grandmother, but it was home. Our home. We loved it. My boyfriend worked the graveyard shift, and I worked days, so we spent a lot of time apart. That meant that when we were together, we enjoyed the simple things in life. A lot of naked time. Over time, when I was waking up and taking my morning shower, my boyfriend, who was just getting home, realized that he could come up to our open shower window and sneak a peek. I always caught him. It was in good fun, and we laughed. Eventually, I started to notice there was a log standing upright outside of that window. I continually asked him why he would need that. He was tall enough already. He'd claim it wasn't his and move it away when I went outside to show him. Yet every few days it would move right back. The guys who cared for the yard were there several times a week, so they must have just been moving it back out of the way against the building. Finally, before the snow fell, the yard workers cleared away all the yard debris, and we went on in peaceful oblivion, candy-coated, love-filled oblivion. Time went on, and our lease was up, but there was a great special at our cheap apartment complex. We could now rent 2 bedrooms even cheaper than our 1 bedroom. We happily signed the new lease. The only real problem was that our 1-bedroom apartment was on a nice suburban street facing houses, so we never really noticed how bad our neighborhood was. We were moved to the other end of the community, behind an abandoned strip mall where a lot of stray cats seemed to live. None of this mattered in our dimly lit front yard, though. Our apartment was super cheap and super huge. What more could we ask for? That year, we were so happy that my boyfriend went to buy me a ring on Valentine's Day. Being young and giddy in love, he wasn't able to keep the secret, and I told him yes before he could even ask the question. He didn't have a lot of money, so he bought the ring with the help of a friend's father who owned a jewelry store. He got a good price, but with the drop in price, so comes a drop in attention to detail. I was devastated when he brought home the ring along with our wedding band set to find out that someone had mistaken my very tiny 4 ring size with a 12. My rings were made for monster hands. What a terrible way to start our engagement. Clearly, they needed to go back, so he put them in his glove box. But then a snowstorm prevented him from taking them back that day. The next day he went to his car to find that it had been broken into. Nothing had been taken except the rings from the glove box. We never did have the money to replace them. We personally went to every pawn shop in the area, and everybody said they hadn't seen anything. I began to be jealous any time I'd see a woman with large fingers wearing a silver ring with Celtic knotwork. I kept telling myself that her deadbeat boyfriend stole my ring to give to that whore. Winter passed, and summer came. With the summer came the warm breezes and the fresh air through our open windows. What the summer didn't bring was more money, not for us and not for the city. We lost our phone service for non-payment, but it didn't matter. The only people we talked to were each other anyway. Meanwhile, the city cut police and even closed a few stations, most of them in our neighborhood. It didn't matter, though. Summer days are long, and our dingy little corner of the community was not at all intimidating in the daylight. One night, my husband-to-be turned in for the night early, and so I decided that after a long day, what I really needed was a nice soak in the bath. I walked into the bathroom and began to run the water, adding my bath salts and bubble bath. I opened the window for that nice summer breeze and took off my clothes and dumped them in a pile by the open bathroom door. I then grabbed my laptop to set on the closed toilet seat so I could relax in the tub with a movie. This would be at least 2 hours of pure bliss. Nothing beats a long soak in my book. I turned the volume up on my laptop and relaxed the hours away with one movie and then another. What must have been 4 hours later, I pulled the plug on the drain and sat while the water swirled away. I slowly stood up and stretched and dried off, the now cool night air hitting my face through the window. I figured I'd just leave that open, though. The apartment could use the airing out.
I stepped out of the tub and across the bathroom. I didn't bother to move my pile of clothes, instead stepping around them in a manner to get out the partially open bathroom door. This move put me looking back into the bathroom, right out the window, where I saw a tall man. At first, I was startled, but quickly realized it was just my fiancé playing a trick on me, like he used to do at our old apartment. Then I saw his eyes up too high in the window, and everything in my head began to swim. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I could only stand there, naked, and stare. Then everything came into startling detail. He was standing up on something so high up that I could see his full torso in the window, his full torso, and his genital. There was a man outside my window jerking off. The motion drew my attention to his hand. Everything happened in a split second after I saw him, while I was frozen to the spot. I noticed he was wearing a silver ring with Celtic knotwork on it. I made a mental note of ways to identify him as I finally unfroze and ran to the bedroom. "There's a man outside the bathroom window," I said so fast my fiancé couldn't understand as he woke up. "What?" he asked. I repeated, "There's a man outside the bathroom window. He's jerking off. He was watching me. Oh my God, make him go away." I was finally in hysterics as everything sunk in. That man could have been there, hovering over me for hours. The only thing separating us was a thin screen. When I had stood up, his genital was inches from my face, his body towering over me. I just kept covering myself with blankets and telling my fiancé to make him go away. By the time my fiancé woke up and went to check on the situation, nobody was anywhere around. There was only a log standing upright like a step outside our bathroom window. In the aftermath, we filed a police report, but had no phones to call, so had to drive a good 20 minutes away to do so. Then they didn't have enough forces to do anything about the situation anyway. We didn't have the money to break our lease. Instead, we spent the rest of that year living in fear. I covered every window with black contact paper. I wedged boards into every window so they couldn't be opened. The bathroom window never again opened. I never left without pepper spray. I never left after dark, but for the rest of that year, most nights, I'd hear a faint noise outside our bedroom window, which was next to our bathroom. In the morning, when my fiancé would check it out, there would be imprints in the ground, as if somebody had recently been standing there. I wish I could say this is just a story. I wish I could say that, but it is all the truth of 3 long years of my life. I still can't sleep at night.
A few years ago, I had a strange series of break-ins that started when my apartment complex hired an out-of-town crew to do exterior painting. They were a rough-looking bunch that regularly, but mildly, catcalled or stared at me when I would leave or come home and have to walk past them. The complex left a note that they would be power washing, then painting the balcony, so everything on it had to be moved inside. I had a cat at the time and lived on the 2nd story, so we would leave the slider partway open so he could come and go. His box was out on the balcony. Totally spaced that we would have people on our balcony and left the slider open. Came home that day before my roommate to find a very personal item of mine that was kept in my underwear drawer, propped up on the ledge of our fish tank, which was about the first thing you saw when you walked through the front door. So there it is, staring at me in the most unlikely of places. My first thought, roommate was playing a really weird and highly inappropriate joke on me. Once that checked out, panic starts setting in, but I don't notice anything else out of place. And there was also cash and a small amount of pot where this item was kept. Both of those things were undisturbed. My thought process was that there was no way someone would break in, go through my drawers, not take anything, but put my toy on display. So I put the toy away and let it go. Until the next day when I got home from work. There's a small 2-tiered wooden end table, looked old like from a thrift store, set up outside my door with the following items: fertility god statue, still burning incense, used but not still burning candles, crystals or rocks, and a plant. I immediately start going door to door to ask my neighbors if they did it or may have seen someone putting it up. No one saw anything. I then call anyone I knew who might do such a thing as a prank to let them know I'd be calling the police and having the items fingerprinted, so the jig was up. But they all gave me the same response, that not only was it not them, but to call the police immediately. I wait in my car for my roommate to get home. He's a Texan that is always packing and very protective, like a brother to me, and go inside to scope things out and wait for the police, who wouldn't be there for about an hour. The first thing I noticed was there were 2 small frames along my windowsill that the pictures had been removed from, one of me and my son, one of me and my best friend. I go to my bedroom. The toy from the previous day was on my bed. At this point, if it were a movie, you'd be yelling at me to get the hell out of there and never return. But strangely, when you're in the situation, it all seems so surreal. You're in your own house, surrounded by your familiar things, and you just don't feel a sense of immediate danger. You just keep thinking that there has to be some normal explanation. Someone's going to fess up that they're messing with you. The cops come, take prints, take one look at the shrine, and tell me I should be very concerned and probably consider moving. My roommate understood, of course, so I made arrangements to move over the next couple days. Nothing in those next couple days happens, except for sometime during the evening after the cop left, but before we could do it, the shrine was taken down, then reappeared the next day while we were at work. It was then immediately removed by the roommate before I got home. Moving day, and I'm taking apart my bed. I move the mattress, and in between the mattress and box spring, I find a camera, the old school film kind, that didn't belong to me or anyone I know, a couple other picture frames that had been taken apart and pictures removed. One of which was a collage of me and my friend, only the sexier pics of us had been removed. I have the police come back out to take pictures and take the camera for potential evidence. I specifically asked to never be alerted to what was on the film if developed, unless I absolutely had to be, and I never heard anything back from them. No idea what, if anything, was on the film, but it still creeps me out to this day. I have a very light dating history, not to mention I live with a man and am close with my son's big weightlifter father who comes by every couple days. I honestly don't believe it was anyone I know. The cops were pretty certain it was someone on the painting crew, as they had access, and it started the day they had been on the balcony. To my knowledge, nothing ever came of it. I was out of there in 2 days and never looked back. The roommate never had anything strange happen again. When I tell the story, it feels like something that happened to a friend or in a movie. I feel very numb to it, like it wasn't real. Pretty creepy, though.